found out about the toy piano project, I was browsing the Clark University website, a very fine establishment, Clark University, and I was looking at the geology program, the psychology program, and the chemistry program, and the English program, and I come up to the music program, and I see something called the Extensible Toy Piano Project. And I'm like, what is the Extensible Toy Piano Project? So I click on it, and it's the most awesome thing ever. It's a toy piano festival where they play toy pianos, and it's crazy. It's like more avant-garde than playing baseball inside. It's more avant-garde than selling out the Pontiac Silverdome, selling a North American indoor attendance record, which, by the way, is awesome. Looks like the Extensible Toy Piano Project.
The way we organized the concerts in part was around performers. So we had a number of people come in to participate and cultivated performers because of their interest in toy pianos. Matthew Sampson and Rondre Davis lay the harp down on concrete blocks so that it's horizontal like a bed, and then they mic'd the harp with contact microphones, and Matt Sanson wrote software that recorded, again, took the sounds of the live harp and mixed them with toy piano sounds as an improvisation. I think one aspect that it represents, part of its significance, is what will probably be increasingly a trend to conceive of live performance of music in terms of electronics, in terms of mediation by technology. I think we've already reached the point where most of the music that most people hear in their lives is coming through speakers. The final piece on the first half of the program was Phyllis's own, called Suite for Toy Piano, and it was something of a performance piece that begins with toy piano and incorporates the sounds of a wind-up music box that she very dramatically starts just before the beginning of the piece. And then it ends with, or just before the end, there's an enormous cadenza, there's a virtuosic piano part, and she stops in the middle of that and takes out a pan and fries an egg, and then finishes the piece.
Anyone could play a toy piano because it's a toy. I mean, you don't have to be like a classically trained musician to play like a freaking toy piano. Really, it democratizes, or some word like that. It makes music accessible to everyone. Oh, absolutely. I'd, make up something really awesome. I don't know what yet, but I'll see what I can do with my toy piano. Because I can afford a toy piano. It's really cheap. It's a little toy piano.
I think one thing that captured people's imagination, and that's something that we had hoped would happen and I think really did, was the playful quality of it. That there are a lot of people, even a lot of students, who come to college and they've never been to a concert. They've never experienced music, classical music, or concert music performed live. And I think part of the barrier there is that it's conceived of as staid and old. You look at the programs of symphony orchestras, and there's usually nothing that's been written in the last 100 years. It's sort of like going to a museum. So one thing that we hoped to accomplish was to try to break down those barriers and to try to entice some people who might not have come to a concert before to feel like this would be something, oh, well, it's a toy piano, so there's not going to be anything intimidating. I think there were some moments where there were humorous things, but also that people could take something that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a serious instrument, like a toy piano, and treat it like a real musical instrument. That was something that Cage intended. He had a balance between those two things. There was certainly something playful in the original Cage use of toy piano, but the possibility for some seriousness too.
John Cage is crazy. I mean, he made the greatest work that I never really heard because I have a very short attention span, so I can't last 4 minutes and how many seconds? Yeah, I can't last 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm sorry, but I've heard his work is very awesome. So, from what I've heard, you know, he's a great guy, John Cage, really cool cat.
The second piece was Kyle Gann's own toy piano piece called Paris Intermezzo, which I learned was written entirely during a transcontinental flight from New York to Paris. That he had just come, before he got on the plane, he had come from a concert where he had heard a Beethoven Beethoven piano sonata performed, and was so moved by it that he decided to write a piece. And since he was sitting in such cramped quarters while he was writing it, rather than think in terms of the instrument he had just heard, he was moved to think in terms of a much smaller instrument, so he wrote it for toy piano. Increasingly, people who are still interested in creating music for social circumstances like concerts are starting to use electronics as part of the experience. So not necessarily to the exclusion of sort of what might be called traditional or acoustic instruments, but in cooperation. And I think that's important about what this did. You know, the idea of extending acoustic sounds with technology is probably going to be increasingly important.
Yeah, I heard some of it. I heard some samples that my friend sent me, and they were really cool. I heard that it's all about the visuals, though, too. You gotta be there to experience it, so maybe next year. They're not doing it next year, though, are they?
We brought in a Boston-based group called the Calathumpian Consort. And the Calathumpians are gaining an international reputation as an improvisational troupe. And we encouraged them to organize their performance as a kind of concerto. So we paired one of their performers, Keith Kirchhoff, as a soloist on toy piano, and we connected him with a young composer and electronic musician named Konrad Kozmak, who worked with him to develop an extended toy piano. So the sounds of the soloist were not just the toy piano, but the toy piano played live, and then the electronic extensions that moved around in space and changed timbre. And then behind that, there was an ensemble of live improvisers that included flute, clarinet, saxophone, trombone, violin, bass, voice, percussion, and the group's leader, his name is Stephen Drury, who's a pianist himself. And their performance, this improvised concerto, was the entire second half of the program.
Can't think of anything better to say other than the Toy Piano Project is completely awesome and everyone should check it out.
And that was the whole thing. Then we had I think, a well-deserved reception, and finished off the evening.